Scientists produce a review that dismisses the link between sugar and heart disease, points the finger at fat instead, and shapes American dietary policy for the next 50 years.
I want you to pay attention to something your body does every time you get sick. Your appetite disappears completely. You don't want food. The smell of it turns your stomach. Your hunger just shuts off. Now here's the question nobody asks. Why would a machine built for survival, a machine that fights to keep you alive every second of every day, why would it shut down hunger at the exact moment it supposedly needs fuel most? Unless it knows something your grandmother doesn't. Unless it knows something your doctor didn't tell you. Unless it knows something that a $200 billion industry is depending on you never figuring out. Because here's what I know. The system built around your health was not designed to make you healthy. It was designed to make you dependent. And the proof is not in some forum on the internet. It's in the memos. It's in the payment records. It's in the congressional archives that nobody reads because they're counting on you being too tired and too full to look. Stay with me. Also, what I'm about to show you changes how you see everything. Let's start with the biology, because this is where it gets remarkable. Every animal on Earth stops eating when it's sick. Dogs, cats, lions, bears. No vet told them to. No prescription, no pamphlet from the hospital. They just stop, and they heal. We're the only species on the planet that gets sick and immediately reaches for a bowl of processed food. And when you actually look at the science of why, it stops being interesting and starts being terrifying. When you stop eating, something happens inside your body that no pharmaceutical company will ever put in a commercial. After roughly 24 hours, your body shifts fuel sources. It stops burning incoming glucose and starts burning stored fat. But that's just the surface. The deeper mechanism is called autophagy. The word literally means self-eating. Your cells start cleaning house, breaking down damaged proteins, misfolded structures, and cellular waste, recycling what's broken to rebuild what's functional. It's an internal purification system that only fully activates when you stop feeding the body from the outside. This isn't folk medicine. This isn't someone's podcast opinion. In 2016, a scientist named Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in Physiology for mapping this exact process. Nobel Prize. Your body has a built-in repair mechanism that switches on when you stop eating. So ask yourself, why has no one made that the headline? Why is the entire medical infrastructure built around what to eat, what to take, what to buy, and nobody is talking about the thing that costs nothing? I'll tell you why. A body that heals itself is a body that doesn't need products. A man who knows how to fix himself from the inside is unmonetizable. And that is a problem for a lot of very powerful people. Now let me show you exactly how far they went to make sure you never connected those dots. 1964. Scientists are beginning to link sugar to heart disease. Studies are coming out. Alarm bells are ringing. The sugar industry panics. So the Sugar Research Foundation, the lobbying arm of the sugar industry, launches an internal operation called Project 226. They go to Harvard University. They pay 3 of the most respected nutrition scientists in the country the equivalent of $50,000 in today's money. In exchange, those scientists produce a review published in the New England Journal of Medicine, one of the most prestigious medical journals on Earth, that dismisses the link between sugar and heart disease, points the finger at fat instead, and shapes American dietary policy for the next 50 years. The industry's funding was never disclosed. This wasn't discovered by a whistleblower. It wasn't a government investigation. It was found in 2016 by a single researcher digging through public archives. 31 pages of correspondence between the Sugar Research Foundation and the Harvard scientists who took the money. They didn't just fund the study. They wrote the objective. They chose which papers to include. They reviewed the drafts. And then
it got published. In Harvard's name. In a journal doctors trust with their lives. The low-fat craze that swept through the 80s and 90s, downstream of this. Brawn fat-free products loaded with sugar, downstream of this. The obesity crisis that followed, downstream of this. One bought study. 50 years of damage to hundreds of millions of people. And when they were confronted about it in 2016, after the documents came to light, the Sugar Association released a statement saying they should have exercised greater transparency. That's it. Greater transparency. For knowingly poisoning the science that your doctor read, that your nutritionist trusted, that your children's school lunch program was built on. Now let's talk about the poster that hung in your school cafeteria. The food pyramid. In 1991, the USDA developed a food guide based on actual science. Scientists called it the Eating Right Pyramid. It recommended eating less meat and dairy. The meat and dairy lobbies went to Congress. The USDA killed it. Shelved. Gone. A government health document, erased because private industries made phone calls. 1 year later, a replacement appeared, revised, softened, redesigned, with the graphic layout altered specifically to appease industry concerns. A Harvard nutrition professor said on the record, "I was told we could never say eat less meat because USDA would not allow it." Think about that. The government agency telling you what to eat is the same agency whose primary legal mandate is to promote American agricultural products. Those two jobs cannot exist in the same building without one of them losing. And it was never your health that won. When the guidelines told you to eat 6 to 11 servings of grain a day, the Wheat Foods Council and the Corn Refiners Association had already spent millions making sure that number landed there. When they told you to drink 3 glasses of milk daily, the dairy industry had spent $7 million in a single year lobbying to make sure their product had a permanent spot on that pyramid. The document your teacher pointed to, the one your pediatrician referenced, the one the government said was science, written with industry fingerprints on every layer.
Now here is where the government stops being complicit and starts being a direct partner in this. In the 1970s, the USDA ended controls on corn production. They didn't just allow unlimited growth, they paid farmers to maximize it. Billions of dollars in subsidies every year. All that cheap excess corn had to go somewhere. So high fructose corn syrup, a cheaper, sweeter, more shelf-stable sweetener engineered from cornstarch, was injected into the American food supply at industrial scale. By 1984, Coca-Cola and Pepsi had completely switched from cane sugar to high fructose corn syrup in the United States. Not in Europe, just here. The European Union caps fructose levels in food at 20 to 30%. The FDA allows 55%, with no limitation other than current good manufacturing practice. That is a direct quote from the federal regulation. No limitation. From 1970 to 2000, added sugars in the American diet increased by 25%. Childhood obesity tripled in that same window. Countries that use high fructose corn syrup in their food supply show a 20% higher rate of diabetes than countries that don't. And between 1995 and 2010, $16.9 billion in federal subsidies flowed directly to producers of corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, cornstarch, and soy oils. $0 went to fruit and vegetable farmers. Not a penny. They subsidized the poison. They let the medicine grow on its own. And they told you to eat more grains. That is not incompetence. That is a policy decision with a winner and a loser. The winner was the corn refining industry. The loser was your pancreas. This is the part that should genuinely disturb you. By the late 1970s, the tobacco industry was in trouble.
Smoking rates were falling, regulations were tightening. The science linking cigarettes to cancer was becoming impossible to suppress. So they went looking for a new market where their specific expertise would translate directly. And their expertise was one thing: engineering addiction. Finding the precise chemical combinations that override the body's off switch, create compulsive use, and make stopping feel impossible. So Philip Morris, the company behind Marlboro, bought Kraft. Then they bought General Foods. They merged them into Kraft General Foods, which handed them ownership of Kraft mac and cheese, Lunchables, Jell-O, and Kool-Aid, among dozens of other products sitting in homes all across America. At the same time, R.J. Reynolds, maker of Camel cigarettes, acquired Nabisco. Oreos, Chips Ahoy, Ritz crackers, Teddy Grahams. For over 20 years, the two biggest cigarette companies in the world ran America's grocery store shelves. A University of Kansas study published in the journal Addiction found that during the period when tobacco companies owned these food brands, they produced significantly more hyper-palatable products, foods engineered to hit the bliss point and override satiety, than food companies with no tobacco connection. The researchers' conclusion? The very technologies used to optimize the addictive properties of nicotine were transferred directly into ultra-processed food development. Same scientists, same psychology, same precision, same goal. You weren't eating a snack. You were being handed a legal, socially acceptable substance, engineered to the same behavioral standards as a cigarette, designed to make stopping feel like a failure. And they went after children first, because that's when the habit forms deepest. Philip Morris created new Kool-Aid flavors to specifically target Hispanic communities. They distributed free samples and coupons to Black families through community events, the exact same micro-targeted strategy they had used to sell cigarettes to specific populations for decades. Different product, same machine, same people.
Here's the mechanism, and once you see it everywhere. An internal R.J. Reynolds memo from the tobacco years stated it plainly. Doubt is our product, since it is the best means of competing with the body of fact that exists in the mind of the general public. When cigarettes were linked to cancer, they didn't admit it. They paid scientists to dispute it. They created front groups with respectable-sounding names, funded entirely by the industry, to appear as independent voices. They lobbied Congress relentlessly to block every regulation. They insisted it was about personal responsibility. When that same pressure landed on the food industry, when studies linked soda to obesity, processed food to diabetes, high fructose corn syrup to metabolic disease, they ran the identical script, disputed the science, funded their own researchers, put corporate logos on university research labs, PepsiCo at Yale, Coca-Cola funding nutrition departments at major institutions, lobbied against warning labels, flooded media with messaging about balance and moderation, language designed to make the problem feel like your problem, not theirs. About too much heat, they launched a healthier version, diet soda, fat-free everything, low-sugar alternatives, that kept you in the loop while the underlying damage continued. The system doesn't need a smoky room of villains. It just needs every person with power to get paid when you keep consuming. And they do. Every single time. So here is the question. If the body already knows how to heal, if the science confirms it, if Nobel Prizes have been awarded for it, why aren't we talking about it? Because the answer costs nothing. Not a prescription, not a subscription, not a label or a patent or a hospital visit. When you stop eating, even for a short, controlled period, your body stops being a digestion machine and starts being a repair machine. Stored fat becomes fuel. Cells begin recycling their own damaged material. The internal environment shifts from processing incoming chemicals to cleaning out what accumulated. Research at USC by Dr. Walter Longo showed that fasting for 72 hours before chemotherapy
protected healthy cells while making cancer cells more vulnerable. Because cancer cells are metabolically rigid, they need constant glucose. When that stops, they lose the advantage. The body did what billions of years of evolution programmed it to do. Every ancient tradition understood this without a microscope. Christianity fasted, Islam fasted, Buddhism fasted. Hippocrates, the father of medicine, prescribed fasting as the first intervention. They watched sick animals stop eating. They watched sick people lose appetite, and they were humble enough to follow what the body was already doing. We replaced that humility with corn syrup and a pill for every symptom it creates. And here's what matters most. When you fast, even briefly, and the noise settles and the cravings rise up demanding to be fed, and you sit with them instead of answering them, you find out something unsettling. Most of what you thought was your hunger wasn't yours. The craving for that specific texture, that specific flavor, that specific emotional ritual around food, that was planted, that was engineered, that was sold to you before you were old enough to question it. And the moment you see it, you cannot unsee it. The grocery store looks different. The commercials sound like what they are. The pharmaceutical ads on the evening news make a different kind of sense.
Here's what I need you to understand. The documents exist. Harvard scientists were paid, in secret, to tell you sugar wasn't the problem. Tobacco executives bought the companies that made your children's food and applied addiction science to the recipes. The USDA killed its own health guide when the meat lobby called Congress. Your tax dollars built the infrastructure that flooded your food supply with a sweetener linked directly to the diabetes epidemic. None of this is hidden. It's sitting in public archives, in peer-reviewed journals, in congressional records. They just built a world loud enough, busy enough, and processed enough that most people never get quiet long enough to go looking. That's the setup. And the exit is not a product. The exit is the one thing they cannot sell you. A quiet body, a clear mind, the ability to sit with hunger and not panic. A man who needs less is harder to control, and in a system built entirely on your dependence, becoming less dependent is the most dangerous thing you can do. The door is already there. It's been there since the beginning. Your body knows exactly where it is.